And then Baki smiled and laughed awkwardly, and I said, big brother, you should definitely train your wife or both of them, it's the best decision I ever made, and let me tell you. And then I said with a very lewd expression, I said, it's absolutely wonderful big brother, and I held both of my hands together and I stared at my wife, and Baki Hanma said, oh, it's that good, huh? And then he used his power jab on me and I dodged it, and I said, nice try, and I gave him a Spartan kick and it knocked him all the way across the ring, and then I flipped behind him while he was flying in mid-air and punched him in the back holding back, and see King Retsu charged me and I dodged him too, and I said, so you boys are getting pretty good, but I'm just getting warmed up. And then Baki Hanma tried to punch me in the balls and kick me in the balls, and then I got mad and I knocked him out, and then I slapped Retsu hard enough to leave a mark, and I said, damn it Baki, you know I don't like fighting dirty big brother, why did you have to go and do that? And I said, okay, I'm done, see you guys soon in the tournament. And Baki Hanma got up and said, what happened? And Retsu said, you got knocked out by your brother again. And Baki said, I want to see him do that move again like he did to dad, I want to learn it. He called it God Eraser Fisted destroyed dad on a cellular level. And Retsu said, the fact he was able to kill Yujiro Hanma at such a young age proves how powerful he is. And then the tournament began with me fighting Doppo Orochi, and he said, nice to see you again kid, we miss you at the dojo. And I said, I'll come back sometime. And he said, you're different from your father, you respect traditional martial arts and kung fu, and you're not disrespectful to us like he was. And I said, I was in the United States military, they teach you respect, and my mother taught me manners. My old man was a jerk, but I respected him too until he tried to kill an innocent woman and beat on his children, and he lost my respect a long time ago because of that. Hell, I'm glad I killed him, the bastard deserved it after what he tried to do to Baki and his mother. I couldn't allow that shit, so I did something about it. And Doppo Orochi said, what you achieved should have been impossible for your age, and so it means you're truly mighty kid, and if you don't mind I want to feel your full strength, show me some respect kid for once. And I said, sir, I do respect you, and that's not a good idea, I don't want to hurt you, I really don't want to kill you with my strength, it's too much. And Doppo Orochi said, you underestimate me kid. And I said, no sir, you overestimate yourself, so I tell you what, I will kick your ass today, but I'm not killing you, I don't want someone else's death on my conscience. And Doppo Orochi said, very well then, I guess you don't mind if I try to kill you then. And then Doppo Orochi used every killing technique on me he knew, and I watched all his techniques very closely, and I have a gift like my father, if I see a martial arts technique I mastered it instantly. And I said, why are you showing me this old man? And he said, consider it one final lesson from me kid. And he said, now show me your true power. And then Baki Hanma watched closely as I cocked my fist back, a flame like energy radiated from my right fist, and I only used a little bit of my strength, but I didn't use God Eraser Fist, and I showed him a little bit of it and I yelled God Eraser Fist, but the blow didn't land, instead it knocked Doppo Orochi into a wall where it knocked him out with fist print on his chest, and I counted from 10 all the way down to 0, and the announcer said Bobby Cooper Hanma is the winner. And then Doppo Orochi coughed and said, okay kid, that's good enough. And I ran to the old man and I said, master, are you okay? And he said, that kinda reminds me of your father's punch. And I said, okay, thank God you're not dead. And I examined him with my master doctor skills, and I used my impressive doctor skills to use pressure points to allow his blood to flow more frequently in his body so he doesn't die. And he said, I'm fine kid. And I said, I'm just making sure, I don't want to kill anyone else if I don't have to. And he said, you might have to kill Pickle because he hasn't eaten in a while and he did that on purpose, he said he wants to kill you. And I said, so be it. And I said, Baki, I think I might have to kill your friend Pickle. And he said, go right ahead bro, but try to spare his life if you can. And said, I will try my best big brother, but I'm not promising anything. And then I had to fight Pickle the next day, so I made love to my wife that night, and then the next day I was ready and I said, hi Pickle, how are you today big guy? And he waved and smiled like usual, but this time he was also crying, and I said, I understand. And I showed him the T-Rex meat. I threw it in front of him and he shook his head no, and he said, I don't want it, you eat it. And I said, you can't be serious man, I really don't want to do this. And Baki said, just eat the meat you big dummy.